In this movie, we'll look at how you show the effects of activities and actions on objects. We'll start with the notation for showing objects, then look at object flows, which link them to other elements of the diagram. And finally, we'll look at pins, which are used to show object flows where an object isn't shown on the diagram. Actions and activities have effects on objects. They create them, update them, read their values, and delete them. We can show this on an activity diagram. The notation is the same as in communication diagrams, with the name of the object, a colon, and the name of the classifier, which is usually a class name. The state of the object can optionally be shown in square brackets. We're modelling UML behaviours here, and the same behaviour may well be shown in an interaction diagram from a different perspective, but will have equivalent effects on objects. The creation of a new object in the unknown state in the activity diagram is the same as the creation message creating a lifeline in the sequence diagram and leaving it in the unknown state. Object flows connect activities and actions to objects. They're directional. They can also connect objects to other elements of activity diagrams, like central buffers and data stores, which we don't cover in this introductory course. The flow in an activity diagram can go via object flows as well as control flows. So a flow can go out of one activity into an object, and then from that object into the next activity. Object tokens pass along these flows. The notation is the same as for control flows, though in UML1 these arrows were shown with dashed lines. Where there isn't an object in the diagram, object flows connect to activities and actions via pins. On an activity, these are shown as a small square on the edge of the activity. The names of the object and its classifier, separated by a colon, are used to identify the pins. There are various different types of actions that operate directly on objects, as in the example here, with a create object action and a write variable action. Pins are used to show object flows between actions, and the pins are shown on the outside of the action. Let's see how this works in Enterprise Architect. We'll add the object device into the activity diagram for add a device. I'll open up the swim lanes version. The obvious point to add a device object is at the point where it's created. I'll make some more space in the swim lane. I click on Object in the toolbox, and then on the diagram. I'll call the object device. I'm going to set it to be an instance of open-closed device in this case. I use the same context menu as in the communication diagram or sequence diagram to set the instance classifier. So right-click, Advanced and Instance Classifier. And I can browse through the structure of the model to find the right class to use. To set the state, I right-click, select Advanced, and then Set Object State. The state is unknown. I add an object flow using the quick linker from Create New Device to Device. It only shows me an object flow as an option because a control flow can't go to an object. Now I'll need that data from that object in the activity redisplay device details. I'll just swap those two activities over in the diagram so it's on the same side as the object. And again, I can use the quick linker to draw an object flow from the object to the activity. There'll also be an object flow between redisplay device details and display test result. I'll add another object, call it device, set the instance classifier, and set the state. And I'll draw in two more object flows, one to device and one from device to display test result. I now have a flow from create new device to display test result using object flows, and tokens will pass along this route, so I don't need the fork and join and the control flows any longer. So now I have an object flow from create new device through this device to redisplay device details, and then through this object device to display test result. The activity test physical device will also need data about the device, so I can show an object flow to that as well. In order to illustrate the difference, I'll use a direct object flow so you can see how it creates pins. I draw an object flow from create new device to test physical device, and Enterprise Architect adds the pins for me. I need to give these names. They're both device, and I can set their instance classifier to open close device in exactly the same way as I did for the objects. The flow from test physical device to display result of test is going to be of a different type. It's not a device, but a value stating if the device exists. So we can draw an object flow from test physical device to display test result and call the pins device exists. I won't add an instance classifier, as this isn't an object instance of a class, although you could create a class as a wrapper for the Boolean value that it contains. What this now reflects is test physical device as an activity taking in an input, which is the value device of the class open-close device, and outputting a result, which is device exists, which is a Boolean value which says whether the device exists or not. The flows that arrive at display test result are now both object flows, and there is an implicit and an implicit join here. Both of these must arrive before display test result executes. This diagram's a bit of a mess now. We've got two different kinds of objects and object flows in it. Normally in a diagram you would put one or the other in, but it illustrates the two different ways in which you can show objects and object flows in an activity diagram.